Well, hello, Lifeflow coaches. We just completed our most recent session of our Lifeflow training. We did Engage, where we walked the guys through a missional focus and had a great time together. And so we wanted to give you an update on what we covered and also kind of where we're at in the Lifeflow process. First of all, I want to say thank you again for the work you're doing coaching. We're not just saying this. Once again, the guys, we're saying how meaningful their connection has been with you. Probably for some of you more than you even realize, that it has been integral not only to their ministry thinking and sharpening, but to their personal well-being. So thank you for your investment in those pastors. So we had 4 sessions. Scott led off first, laying a foundation, a theological foundation of sentness. You want to share a little about that?
Yeah, I think you guys, especially the last round, the group that's coaching now that we're in the last session, maybe you remember we started with those questions that were kind of somewhat provocative, but getting us to think about being more missional, like does your church have the 87% problem? 87% is catered to what you do internally, but not having a sense of being external in your focus. Or if you closed your doors, would it matter in your community? Just kind of walking through those conversations led us into thinking through what a missional mindset of what it means to be sent. And if you recall, when we talked about this, we talked about it's not just an ought that we do; it's what we are. We are a sent people, and so I thought really a good, robust conversation on just kind of a theology of what it looks like for us. To tap into the heart of a God who is a sending God, who has sent us, his people, into a world that needs Christ. So I thought that was a good way to get started in our conversation.
Yep. Second session, we covered Jesus' methodology for mission, and we kind of made the observation that we tend to be pretty clear on Jesus' message. And thankfully, I think as our evangelical free church are solid in our doctrine of what Jesus' message is. We were saying his methods also are very important. There are principles for how to go about mission that we see in the life and ministry of Jesus and then in the early church. So Luke 10 and Acts 13, we kind of lived in for a session and just talked through some very practical steps that we can take in our churches, moving increasingly to a methodology of sentness. And that seemed to resonate pretty strongly with the guys. The third session was specifically about justice and the mission of Jesus. And I love that the guys were pretty honest, and some of them kind of wondered, it seemed like an oddball piece to throw in. But by the end, they really saw how this was just has from beginning to end in the biblical story, that justice is the heart of God. Mm-hmm. And that was really helpful for people being able to see how our tangible efforts to bring restoration in God in this broken world is part of the mission of Jesus, mm-hmm. and really paves the way for proclamation. That it calls into question why we are doing these things and gives reason, and we're able to give the reason being Christ and his kingdom. And so that was our third session, justice and the mission of Jesus. And then lastly, we finished up with just some very practical steps about developing pathways for churches to live sent. And Scott led that one.
Yeah, talked about things like gospel-centered preaching so that the motive for doing these things come out of the gospel, but then just creating language that people can hang on to, and then actual practical pathways for people to be able to participate and be able to kind of put experience next to some of the things that we're talking about theologically or practically. And so I thought that was helpful for them to just kind of say, okay, I can't just talk about this from a theological, biblical sense, but what are ways that I can help our people engage in being sent? And so I thought the whole tone of our conversation was just very good, and I think some guys are doing it. They're actually already doing it, and we're giving examples of ways in which they were doing justice. Maybe didn't even have the label for that, but and at the same time mobilizing people towards caring for the needs around them.
Yep, that's right. Really one of the big focuses of this time is that the purpose of Lifeflow is ultimately to release the church for mission. And so if this isn't our end goal, then really we're missing the whole point of Lifeflow. And so I think that resonated strongly. Now our cycle, our timeline this year is far more stretched out than it was last year. We kind of front-ended the process this year by putting a lot of the trainings early in the first half of the process. So this year we only have 3 meetings total, one now, September, one in February, and then one in May. So there's a pretty big gap between when we meet now and our next time. And our experience was from the last generation that it was easy for the coaches to kind of fall off on the second half, where Vista really drives the process at the beginning as a clear task. There's less driving the coaching process in the second half. But we want to encourage you just to keep that in front of you, and we'd like to ask you to at least meet once with the person you're coaching between now and our next training session in February. Meet with at least once for the express purpose of Lifeflow coaching. I think you're going to have a couple other opportunities in our district calendar, our district conference in October, the Pastor's Prayer Retreat in January. So you could see them a couple times, which will really be beneficial, but one additional time for the express purpose of talking about Lifeflow. And what we want to ask you to do is to check in with them about their personal development plan. So you've already delivered the executive summary to them, and now it's their responsibility to be saying, well, what do I want to do based on these results? And this does not need to be some large comprehensive report. We're just asking the participants to identify a few key areas where they want to develop and how they're going to go about that. And so we'd like you to ask them for that plan, and then you can meet and talk through, and then you can kind of talk through maybe how that plan shows up in their KRAs. They're beginning to put together their KRAs as well.
Yeah, I would add that even though you're coming to the end of that heavy lifting Vista process, and probably quite a number of you have already completed the executive summary and you're waiting for that personal development plan, they are asking a lot of questions. They're asking a lot of questions about implementation. They're asking a lot of questions about what is this way of life. They're even asking questions that you were asking, like, Lifeflow. Hey, I'm still trying to figure this out. What is this? What's the end game? There's all these terms. And so even though your task with the Vista portion is coming to an end, I think they would really benefit just from being able to hear your stories. Obviously this is, from the get-go, is all about making something work for you in your context. And so we're encouraging them to have freedom with all of this. But at the same time, they're asking questions because they want to do due diligence to understand it. So they're asking these questions. You guys could be a great resource in maybe even calming down some of the angst over where I'm at in the process. But just would encourage you to just stay at it, stay connected, especially in this period when there's 5 months in between. Yep,
definitely. So again, the timeline is we're going to be completing this session of Lifeflow in May of the coming year. And so at this year's district conference, we'll kind of begin talking about Lifeflow in the next generation, which will be beginning in roughly a little over a year. And so probably at the district conference, I'll also identify our current participants and current coaches. So I'll probably ask you to stand and just be identified. So I appreciate the work you're doing on the district. I really think that this is part of the heartbeat of what NEAT is all about. And so thanks for your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really appreciate it. And we thank you for just your investment in these guys. And I know they appreciate it. What we really appreciate is not just you working with them in content, but you are working with them and caring for them. And they just really appreciate it. And you guys know there's challenges that come with ministry, and these guys feel very supported just by your relationship. And for some, it's been a lifeline. And so thank you.
Yep. Very good. Well, thanks, guys.
Take care.